Hello, my name is David Lee and welcome to episode 2 of the Happy Podcast. Yes, the Happy Podcast. What a subject. Nothing more important than being happy in your life, because you ain't happy, what is the point of living it anyway? We all need to go and get our happiness. That's the point of this podcast. This is episode 2, as I said. I'm going to be talking a little bit fast because I don't want you to get bored or switch off, because what I'm trying to say to you, although that might be in a quick and in a jokey manner, is very, very, very serious. So this is episode 2, which is called What is Happiness? What a great title that is. I've got a little story for you to take us into episode 2. So here we go. And the story goes like this. Before the UK went into lockdown, I found myself addicted to caramel latte. I mean, I just loved it. I would drink 2 or 3 cups a day because caramel latte is just, isn't it? That sugar, it's just lovely. And I just loved it. It was my favourite drink. But we all know, it is not good for you. And I found myself I needed to get a self-help group to get me off of it. But in the event of the lockdown, that helped me out anyway. And now I'm free from caramel latte. And on a healthy point, that is a good thing to do. Anyway, one day before the lockdown, I went into my local Costa coffee shop. And I used to love going in that place too, just to sit there, just to people watch. So I went in to order the famous caramel latte, and as I ordered my drink, I couldn't help noticing that the girl behind the counter, she was looking really fed up and really, really unhappy. And I'm a nosy person, so I just had to say to her, "Hey, what's up with you?" And she said, "Look, I'm just having a rubbish day, all right, because I've got a rubbish life." And I thought to myself, wow, really? And as I said, being a nosy person, I had to follow up with the question, well, how happy are you out of 10 then? Because I always ask people that. Don't know why, just get a gauge of people. She sort of said 3. I said, hey, that's a bit low, innit? You know, and then because I'm nosy and I want to ask a little bit more and I'm in the moment, I just said, well, what about in general then? How happy are you? You know, just on a day-to-day average general basis. Where would you be on the happy scale out of 10? And she thought about it and she said, 3. Wow, I thought, again, you are only a young girl, and I was really getting interested in it now. I was in the moment, so being that nosy person, I said to her, well, what is it that she thought that she needed to do, or she needed to go and get in her life to get her happiness level up to, say, an 8, because that would have been a big improvement for her. She thought about it, she was serving me just for a few seconds, shrugged her shoulders, she said, I don't know. Now I thought that was an amazing answer, and I mean really amazing, because if she had no idea of what the things were that she needed to do or she needed to go and get for herself in life to make herself happy, how in any world would she ever go and find some happiness for herself? Because if you don't go looking for something, there is simply no chance in hell that you're ever going to find it, especially if you don't know what you are looking for. This little story is just so typical of so many unhappy people who walk around in their day looking miserable, being miserable, talking miserable, experiencing miserable. And here's another thing about them, that many, many of them have not taken the time or used any energy to think about the things that they could do for themselves or they could go and get for themselves to make themselves happy. And just like the girl in the Costa coffee shop, if they don't know what to go looking for, or they don't know what to go and get for themselves to make themselves happy, they are doomed. And I mean they are doomed. They are dooming themselves to a miserable scenario, to a miserable life, because they never go and get any happiness for themselves. And most of these people rely on this. They rely on luck or fate or someone else to turn up to just present them with their happiness. And the unfortunate thing is that in this life that we live, this just don't happen. You really know that at the end of the day, don't you? It's never going to happen. That person will never come along and just say, they're not going to just rock up and say, oh, you want some happiness? Well, here it is. Here is your happiness. Enjoy. The truth is, in your life, if you want to experience true inner happiness, you have got to go and you have got to find it. So I ask you the question that I posed in episode 1, and I'll ask you it again because it's the most important question that you do need to ask yourself every single day. And that question simply is, how happy are you? How happy are you? And if you are low on your happy scale, do you know what you need to be doing? Do you know what you need to be getting for you in your life to make yourself happy? Because you will know this old saying. As this old saying goes, the definition of madness is doing the same things over and over again and expecting things to change. So if you are currently unhappy and you don't make changes in your life, you are not going to change your life. And without change in your life, you will just keep going around in a continuous circle, round and round, in a continuous circle of unhappiness. And that process, believe me, it will make you mad. Before we go on, it's worth noting, I want to make this point, write this point down. Keep it at the forefront of your mind. Say that again, keep it at the forefront of your mind. Make a note of it. Here we go. Being happy is a serious business. Being happy is a serious business. And being happy is a major thing to achieve in our lives, in your lives, in my life. And here's the reason why. Unhappiness, being unhappy, if we are not careful, can literally kill us. So I ask you again, this simple but most important question. How happy are you? Give yourself a mark out of 10. Where out of 10 would you be? Where would you like to be? And where are you? The difference in the scores, if you are unhappy, is a measure. It's the measure of the work that you need to do to close this gap. And if you do that, the quality of your life will improve. It depends on it. Before you go to look for and get your happiness, you have to understand, it goes without saying really, you have to understand what happiness is. What does it mean to and for you? It's just such a massive, massive question. What is happiness to you? I've tried to define happiness, and the best generic definition that I can come up with is that happiness is a peaceful mind. It's got nothing to do, happiness has got nothing to do with fame, money, possessions, fitness, security. Because you can have all of this and yet not be happy, as we have seen, haven't we, many times. Because if your mind is not at peace, your life is not at peace. If your mind is not at peace, your life is not at peace. I also, when I was investigating and looking at my own happiness, I came up with an equation for happiness, a sum for happiness, which is this. Take a life, then take away worry and anxiety and add in a huge, and I mean a huge dose of self-esteem, and you will get happiness. The equation is a life minus worry and anxiety plus self-esteem equals happiness. However, the truth is that happiness, as we all know, is a personal thing. Your happiness is personal to you, and my happiness is personal to me, and as such, happiness cannot be defined generically. I can't tell you what happiness is and what it means to you, and you can't do the same to me, because it means different things to different people. So if you want to find greater happiness for yourself, you need to work out, you need to define what is happiness for you. And once you've worked it out, you can then make a plan, can't you? And you can take the steps that you need to take to go and find it. Your life, believe this, your life, your happiness, literally, and I mean literally, depends on you doing this. Do not forget that I'm talking about true inner happiness in this podcast. I'm talking about the real deal. I'm not talking about cheap happiness. There's cheap happiness that we can go and get quite easily. Do you know what cheap happiness is? It's the cheap happiness that we can buy or we can steal or that we can get by dubious methods. And like anything that you go and get on the cheap, it's not as good. It's never as good as the real thing. They do not call Coca-Cola the real thing for nothing. Because you can go and get a cheaper version of Coca-Cola. You can go and get a cheap cola. But as you know and I know, it's never going to taste as good, as sweet as the real thing. The cheap happiness that I'm talking about is the instant, the gratification type of happiness, which you can get through things such as doing drugs, selling or using drugs, by getting drunk, by becoming an alcoholic, stealing, lying, cheating, by having affairs, getting lots of material things. Lots of these activities involve looking over your shoulder in case you get caught. You will always be looking over your shoulder to see if your partner's going to find out if you're cheating. If you're stealing, you're going to be looking over your shoulder, just checking the police aren't going to get you. And you had better be looking over your shoulder or watching your back if you're doing drugs or you're drinking too much, because often the devil himself will come and he will, believe me, he'll get you. How can you ever look forward towards your happiness if you're continually looking back over your shoulder in fear? So avoid the negative, easy get cheap happiness, because it does never last. When I'm asked what happiness is, I often reply happiness is mindset, which is something I firmly believe to be the case. If your mind is not right, your body won't work. And if your mind is not right, your life won't work either. So to be happy, here it is. Another major tip coming up for you. Make note of this epic major tip. Take note of it. Here it comes. If you want to be truly happy, if you want to make your dreams come true, if you want to find your success, you need to work on your mind. Remember these words. Commit them to memory. They are my words. All that you are and all that you will ever be is a direct result of your thoughts, your dreams, the decisions that you make and the decisions that you take, because you simply are what you think. Boom. Mindset is everything. Make sure you keep a firm grip of your mind. Keep it positive. Brain train your brain. That's what I said. I said brain train your brain to be positive at all times, to react positive so you stay positive. Your mindset is vitally important. And I do mean vitally important, because you can get all the success you want, all the trappings of success, all the fame, all the money, the big houses, the huge bank accounts, worldwide travel, etc., etc., etc. But at the end of the day, if you're not right in your mind, if you have got a mindset issue, none of all that stuff will deliver you long-term peace of mind, and it will not deliver you long-term happiness. And we can all quote scores and scores of rich, famous, talented people who seem to have had it all, who ended their lives early because ultimately they were not happy. In the flip, you get your mindset right, and you can have all that stuff come to you, all the fame, the adulation, the bank accounts, the big cars, the travel, etc., etc., etc. And if your mindset's right, do you know what? You can sure be happy. And we all want to have a try at that, don't we? Sadly, I've got to run out of things to say, so I need to bring this podcast, this little chat, to an end. And I want to do that by making this point. Life is not easy. We all know that. Life can be hard and life can be demanding. We all know that too. And it is the same for happiness. True inner, long-lasting happiness, it does not come easy. You have to work hard for it. Cheap happiness comes easy, but it's fleeting. it does not sustain you. And in the end, the pursuit of easy, cheap happiness is not worth it. It comes easy, but it's not worth it. There's no worth in it. But in the flip, true inner happiness is long lasting. Yeah, you may have to fight for it, but the fight for that peace of mind, for happiness that will last forever, is always worth it in the end. And so that is the end of episode 2. Thank you very much for listening. All that's left for me to say is see you in the next podcast. I hope that you will subscribe, share, like, follow, whatever you need to do to build the audience. And if you know anybody that's in need of some words that might just help them, because I believe that a life can change on a word, a sentence or a phrase, then please share this podcast with pass the pod, as they say, with anyone that you think might need a word of encouragement. Stay safe, and above everything else in your life, be happy.